Hi, welcome. Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you for being here. I hope your Thanksgiving is going super well, or it went really well. Shout out to Jennifer. Write your name in the chat if you want me to shout you out. Shout out to Super Silly. Oh, my bad. Shout out to Sophia. Thank you for writing your name. Shout out to Uruz. Write your name in the chat if you want me to shout you out. Shout out to Ella. Shout out to, shout out to Assad. Shout out to Catalina. Shout out to, I'm doing well. How's everyone doing? Thank you for asking. Shout out to Zane. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Devesh. Shout out to Daresh. Whoops, I messed up. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Katniss. Shout out to Lori. Shout out to Madison. Shout out to Ning Ning. Shout out to Layla or Lila. Shout out to Macy. Like and subscribe if you enjoy my content. Shout out to Eliani. Shout out to Razia. Shout out to Addison. Shout out to Layla. Shout out to Kyla. Or Kayla, sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Serenity. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Let's try to get to 100 likes. Thank you so much for being here. Shout out to Kaylin. Shout out to Camila. Shout out to Grace. Shout out to Bentley. Shout out to Sally. Shout out to Miguel. Shout out to Althea. Shout out to Amira, or Amira, sorry. Shout out to Raylan. Shout out to Sky. Shout out to Luna. Shout out to Amanda. Shout out to Dominique. Or Dominique, sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Aubriella. Shout out to Abigail. Shout out to Genevieve. Shout out to Chloe. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Harper. Shout out to Brianna. Shout out to Stella. Shout out to Aiden. Shout out to Antonella. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Alice. Shout out to Juliet. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Lana. Shout out to Hadassah. Shout out to Josie. Shout out to Leah. Shout out to Gwen. Shout out to Joseph. Shout out to Reese. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Aiden. Shout out to Rajveer. Shout out to Abel. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Mia. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Llama. Shout out to Nolan. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Bea. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Kenya. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Mackenzie. Shout out to Kala or Kayla. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Mia. Shout out to Sudanir. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Suri. Shout out to these people. on to the next page. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Thank you so much for being here. Oh my gosh, this marker is really bad. Oops. Okay. Shout out to Quinn. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Aristana. Shout out to Balkis. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Mika. Shout out to Joe. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Hermione. Shout out to Brogan. Shout out to Rocky. Shout out to Tammy. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Ariella. Shout out to Razia. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Dustin. Shout out to Maylin. Shout out to Alyssa. Shout out to Ariana. Shout out to Nevaeh. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Allison. Oh no, how do you spell Allison? Shout out to Andres. Shout out to Kyler or Kaylor. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Santiago. Shout out to Amelia. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Ben. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Thank you so much for being here. Shout out to Mitchell. Shout out to Lila. Shout out to Anaya. Shout out to Lila. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Dylan. Shout out to Fatima. Shout out to Yana. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Park Min. Shout out to Delaney. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Pushins. Shout out to Macy. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Let's try to get to 100 likes. Shout out to Tate. Shout out to Artemis. Shout out to Logan. Shout out to Jalissa. Shout out to Michaela. Shout out to Emery. Shout out to Bella. Shout out to Dyro. Shout out to Reagan. Shout out to Maria. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Bethany. Like and subscribe if you enjoy my shout outs. I also post other content. I hope you like it. Shout out to Leo. Shout out to Jessica. Shout out to Nay or Nye. Shout out to Vivian. Shout out to Mayan. Or Mian, sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Nevea. Shout out to LJ. Shout out to Gianna. Shout out to Clara. Shout out to Amanda. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Ivy. Oops, I missed it. We're almost at 100 likes. Give this shout out a like if you are enjoying. Shout out to Another Time. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Bria. Shout out to Allie. Shout out to Andrea. Shout out to Patroclus. Shout out to John. Shout out to Sandra. Shout out to Zell. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Emmy. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Kenna. Shout out to Kimberly. Shout out to these people. If I haven't gotten to your name, please write it again. Sometimes the comments go really fast. That's why I can't. I wish I could write super fast. Also write your name in the chat if you want me to shout you out. Okay, on to the next page. Thank you for being here. Shout out to Lainey. Shout out to Olivia. Shout out to Riley. Shout out to Akeley. Shout out to Liam. Shout out to Callie. Shout out to Grayson. Shout out to Allie. Shout out to Bree. Shout out to Samantha. We're only 20 likes away from 100 likes. Shout out to Crystal. Shout out to Reese. Shout out to Raisa. Shout out to Amaya. Shout out to Josiah. Shout out to Valentina. Shout out to Zanab. Shout out to Scarlett. Shout out to Bella. Shout out to Oliver. Inui, sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Stacy. Shout out to Eliana. Whoops, I put 2 N's. Shout out to, it's 2 L's. Eliana. Shout out to Addison. Shout out to Katina. Shout out to Kylie. Shout out to Sophia. Shout out to Emma. Shout out to Nash. Shout out to Brooke. Shout out to Kaylee. Thank you for 100 likes. Thank you so much for being here. Shout out to Suri. Shout out to Mirab. Shout out to Millie. Shout out to Elizabeth. Shout out to Tatum. Shout out to Alex. Shout out to Montina. Shout out to Ruby. Shout out to Olivia. Shout out to Lily. Shout out to Zanat. Shout out to Anna. Shout out to Heidi. Shout out to Araceli. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Carla. Shout out to Riley. Shout out to, excuse me. Shout out to Sydney. Shout out to Judy. Shout out to Jalissa. Shout out to Sage. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Subscribe if you like my content. Shout out to Regina. Shout out to Rebecca. Shout out to Madeline. Shout out to Bianca. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Roblox. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Ava. Shout out to Isabella. Shout out to Layla. Shout out to Amaya. Shout out to Nicole. Shout out to Danny. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Paula. Shout out to Isla. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Let's try to get to 200 likes. On to the next page. Shout out to these people. Thank you for being here. Write your name in the chat if you want me to shout you out. Shout out to Kensley. Shout out to Lynn. Shout out to Alyssa. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Sanik. Shout out to Joel or Joel. Shout out to Mariah. Shout out to Logan. Shout out to Quinn. Shout out to Llama. Shout out to Gabby. Shout out to Anderson. Shout out to Kinsley. Shout out to Jonathan. Shout out to Laureen. Shout out to Tina. Shout out to Olivia. Shout out to Charlotte. Shout out to Willow. Shout out to Hazelyn. Shout out to Palmer. Shout out to Ashley. Shout out to Emily. Shout out to Isabella. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Thank you so much for being here. Shout out to Ezekiel. Shout out to Arya or Arya. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Daryl. Shout out to Ezekiel. Shout out to Annie Lee. Shout out to Talia. Shout out to Shaylee. Shout out to Amaya. Shout out to Kylie. Shout out to Jalen. Shout out to Henley. Shout out to Bella. Shout out to Alessandra. Shout out to Kathy. Shout out to Aurora. Shout out to Jordan. Shout out to Stella. Shout out to Alvin. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Callie. Shout out to Zoe. Shout out to Sadaf. Shout out to Darlet. Shout out to Angel. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. We're almost at 200 likes. Shout out to Evangeline. Shout out to Sophia. Shout out to Melanie. Shout out to Avery. Shout out to Aiden. Shout out to Porter. Shout out to Izzy, happy birthday. Shout out to Donna. Shout out to Damia. Shout out to Daisy. Shout out to Alyssa. We're almost at 200 likes. Like if you enjoy the shout outs. Shout out to Brianna. Shout out to Lupe. Shout out to Dimitri. Shout out to Liliana. Shout out to Maria. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to DM. Shout out to Raquel or Rachel. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Jojo. Shout out to Delilah. Shout out to Grace. Shout out to Connor. Shout out to Keel. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for 200 likes. Thank you for being here. On to the shout out to these people. On to the next page. Shout out to Jada. Shout out to Tyson. Shout out to Aria. Shout out to Mina. Shout out to Abby. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Johnny. Shout out to Tyler. Shout out to Kanan. Or Kynan. Sorry if I mess up your name. Shout out to Jason. Shout out to Tallulah. Shout out to Julie. Shout out to Elena. Shout out to Nguyen. Shout out to Rebecca. Shout out to Candy. Shout out to Noor. Shout out to Zoe. Shout out to Milana. Shout out to Brooklyn. Shout out to Fiona. Shout out to Cassie, or Casey, sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Addison. Shout out to Savannah. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Let's try to get to no, not 4, that's a lot. 300 likes. Shout out to Mike. Shout out to Hong. Shout out to Ayana. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Moira. Shout out to Mason. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Sky. Shout out to Steven. Shout out to Phoenix. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Najwana. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Skylar. Shout out to Yvonne. Oh, I missed it. Yvontil. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Ruth. Shout out to Anthony. Shout out to Cora. Shout out to Angel. Shout out to Rihanna. Shout out to Simon. Shout out to Kaylin. Shout out to Haven. Shout out to Richard. Shout out to Tadeo. Shout out to Andrea. Shout out to Javier. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Let's try to get to 300 likes. Shout out to Gracie. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Brayley. Shout out to Donna. Or Dana, sorry. Shout out to Nino. Happy birthday. Shout out to Georgia. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Thea. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Rania. Shout out to Jenna. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Alina. Shout out to Casey. Shout out to Sailor. Happy birthday. We're almost at 300 likes. Only like 37 more likes. Shout out to Jess. Shout out to Rayleigh. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Mason. Shout out to Karen. Shout out to Elsie. Whoops, I messed up. Shout out to Aurora. Shout out to Martin. Shout out to Alan. Happy birthday. Shout out to Moana. Shout out to Camila. Shout out to Ariana. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Grayson. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to these people. On to the next page. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Thank you so much for being here. Like and subscribe if you enjoy my content and if you enjoy the shout outs. Shout out to Clara. Shout out to Mark. Shout out to Charlie. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Kanaya. We're almost at 300 likes, only 7 more likes. Shout out to Francis. Shout out to Tegan. Shout out to Arturo. Shout out to Kenya. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Penny. Shout out to Tessa. Thank you for 300 likes. Shout out to Aiden. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Sophia. Shout out to Arthur. Shout out to Chevelle. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Tessine. Shout out to Daniela. Write your name in the chat if you want me to shout you out. Shout out to Charles. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Ariana. Shout out to Mitchie. Shout out to Cade. Shout out to Ella. Shout out to Jasmine. Shout out to Darren. Thank you for subscribing. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Thank you so much for being here. Shout out to Hope. Shout out to Yaneli. Shout out to Amina. Shout out to Lorraine. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Kimmy. Shout out to Piper. Shout out to Miriam. Shout out to Nico. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Collins. My comment section got frozen. I'm not sure what to do. Thank you so much for being here. Shout out to Shelly. out to Birdo. Shout out to Ariana. Shout out to Alex. Shout out to Laura. Shout out to Sid. Give me 1 second. Let me see what I can do because my comment section is frozen. I can't see anymore. Okay, give me 1 second. Thank you for your patience. Shout out to Willow. Shout out to Lacey. Shout out to Zaya. Shout out to Marlon. Shout out to Graceland. Shout out to Naomi. Shout out to Zami. Shout out to Kate. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Let's try to get to 400 likes. Shout out to Lila. Shout out to Zoe. Shout out to Emily. Shout out to Juan. Shout out to Harper. Shout out to Melinda. Shout out to Pia. Shout out to Kinley. Shout out to Rosalie. Shout out to Liz. Shout out to Charlotte G. Shout out to Naya. Shout out to Nora. Shout out to Josh. Whoops, I messed up. Shout out to Luke. Shout out to Elizabeth. Shout out to Tyrell. Shout out to Delaney. Shout out to Paula. Shout out to Casey. Shout out to Lauren. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Bailey. Shout out to these people. On to the next page. Like and subscribe if you're enjoying my content. Let's try to get to 400 likes. Thank you so much for being here. Shout out to Julia. Shout out to Lauren. Shout out to Olivia. Shout out to Avery. We're almost at 400 likes. Shout out to Brian. Shout out to Annalyn. Oops. Shout out to Ruth. Shout out to Zamaya. Shout out to Rival. Shout out to Taylor. Shout out to Logan. We're almost at 400 likes. Shout out to John. Shout out to Candy. Whoops. Shout out to Thomas. Shout out to Braxton. Shout out to Ari. Shout out to Daniel. Shout out to Esther. Shout out to Lorelai. Only 20 more likes till we get to 400. Shout out to Austin. Shout out to Jesus. Shout out to Raylan. Shout out to Waylon. Shout out to Mia. Shout out to Princess. Shout out to Sophia. Shout out to Allison. Shout out to Emma Jean. Shout out to Andreas. Shout out to Naya. And shout out to Amina. Shout out to Angel. Shout out to Harlow. Shout out to Jaqueka. Sorry if I mispronounced her name. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. We're almost at 400 likes. Shout out to Harlem. Shout out to Liv. Shout out to Crystal. Shout out to Joelle. Shout out to Imani. Shout out to Serenity. Shout out to Hannah. Shout out to Arita. Shout out to Tanisha. Shout out to Zanaya. Shout out to Penny. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Phoebe. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Only 2 more likes till we get to 400. Thank you so much for being here. Shout out to Fabian. Shout out to Daniela. Shout out to Sandy. Shout out to Kennedy. Shout out to Violet. Shout out to Kyla. Shout out to Leticia. Shout out to Eddie. Shout out to Rosaria. Shout out to Dominic. Shout out to Valentina. Thank you for 400 likes. Thank you so much for being here. Shout out to Blake. Shout out to Kyla. Shout out to Cora. Shout out to Sienna. Shout out to Hunter. Shout out to Maya. Shout out to Vincent. Shout out to Sana. Shout out to Paisley. Shout out to Brooklyn. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Fatima. Shout out to Jocelyn. Shout out to these people. If I mispronounce your name, trust me, I don't do it on purpose. So please forgive me if I mess up anyone's name. On to the next page. Thank you so much for being here. Write your name in the chat if you want me to shout you out. Shout out to Addie. Shout out to Asia, sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Nino, happy birthday. Shout out to Sunny. Shout out to Everly. Shout out to Carolyn. Thank you for subscribing. Oops. Shout out to Sophia. Shout out to Valerie. Shout out to Anastasia. Shout out to Layla. Shout out to Maddie. Shout out to Nani. Shout out to Miriam. Shout out to Mateo. Shout out to Isabella. Shout out to Mike. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Vanza. Shout out to Summer. Shout out to Emma. Shout out to Penelope. Shout out to Heidi. Shout out to Ayat. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Nathaniel. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Kinsley. Shout out to Dawson. Shout out to Rose. Shout out to Jade. Shout out to Johnny. Shout out to Ayada. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Alana. Shout out to Crocodile. Shout out to Bum. Shout out to Ezra. Oops, I missed it. Shout out to Fo or Fa. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Kinsley. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Phoebe. Shout out to Zach. Shout out to Baljeet. Shout out to Sky. Shout out to Brayley. Shout out to England. Shout out to Reese. Shout out to Uni. Shout out to Mia. Shout out to Natalie. Shout out to Asher. Shout out to Arsalan. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Bo. Shout out to Omar. Shout out to Patrick. Shout out to Mallory. Shout out to Milo. Shout out to Star. Shout out to Vanessa. Shout out to Suri. Shout out to Malo. Shout out to Jaden. Shout out to Ada or Ada. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Fabiana. Shout out to Santana. Shout out to Arabella. Shout out to Cadence. Shout out to Naya. Shout out to Amina. Shout out to Leslie. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Landon. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Vivian. Shout out to Hamza. Shout out to Sophia. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to these people. Like and subscribe. Maybe we could get to 500 likes. On to the next page. Thank you for being here. We're almost at 500 likes. Shout out to Benjamin. Shout out to Brianna. Shout out to Kira. Shout out to Maddie. Shout out to Aranza. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Ava. Shout out to Adam. Shout out to Emmanuel. Oh, wait, not Emmanuel. Sorry, I misread it. Shout out to Emma. Shout out to Wolf. Shout out to Julio. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Remy. We're almost at 500 likes. Shout out to Nora. Shout out to Azara. Shout out to Cameron. Shout out to Emmy. Shout out to Elliot. Is it Elliot with 2 T's? Oh, one T. Shout out to Monique. Shout out to Kaiser. Or Kaiser. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Tony. Shout out to Ivy. Shout out to Kate. Shout out to Lexi. Shout out to Riley. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Thank you so much for being here. Shout out to Gabby. Shout out to Athena. Shout out to Maxwell. Shout out to Alondra. Shout out to Ariel. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Maya. Shout out to Jana or Jana. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Zafira. Shout out to Harper. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Ria or Raya. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Arthur. Shout out to Kate G. Shout out to Ciarellis. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Noah. Shout out to Kyra or Kira. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Kayla. Thank you for subscribing. Oh my goodness, I messed up. I'm so sorry. Shout out to Kayla. Shout out to Darion. Shout out to Anthony. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Bonnie. Shout out to Ira. Thank you for subscribing. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Peggy. Shout out to Corey. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Savannah. Shout out to Rachel. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Amber. Shout out to Knox. Shout out to Lucy. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Kamar. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Melanie. Shout out to Nathaniel. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Rory. Shout out to Veronica. Shout out to Evelyn. Shout out to Elena. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Audrina. Shout out to Jeff. Shout out to Narda. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Aria Lila. Shout out to England. Shout out to Diana. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Lula. We're almost at 500 likes, only 8 more likes. Shout out to Wilson. Shout out to Rose. Shout out to Parker. Shout out to Aileen, or Eileen. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to these people. Thank you so much for being here. On to the next page. Also, thank you for 500 likes. Like and subscribe if you are enjoying the live stream. Also subscribe to my channel. Check it out. I post other content there that I hope you like. Thank you for being here. Shout out to Carlos. Shout out to Renee. Shout out to Marley. Shout out to Daniela. Shout out to Ashley. Shout out to Isabella. Shout out to Cameron. Shout out to Shannon. Shout out to Maria. Shout out to Isla. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Farah. Shout out to Braylon. Shout out to London. Shout out to Saima. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Isa. Shout out to Bella. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Ariella. Shout out to Chi-Yuyi. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Kaden. Shout out to Rohan. Shout out to Benji. Shout out to Aaliyah. Shout out to Gloria. Shout out to Rafaela. Shout out to Meredith. Shout out to Pebble. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Sanjeep. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Cassie. Shout out to Ludmila. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Kayla. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Kate. Shout out to Sinna. Shout out to Enzo. Shout out to Adam. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Tracy. Shout out to Iris. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Niarika. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Gina. Shout out to Monroe. Shout out to Cameron. Shout out to Jesse. Shout out to Adme. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Gio. Shout out to Ishal. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Kimber. Shout out to Zeppelin. Shout out to Noli. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Jaden. Shout out to Leah. Shout out to Amber. Shout out to Michelle. Shout out to Maverick. Shout out to Rekka. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Lauren. Shout out to Weston. Shout out to Neve or Nev. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Marley or Marl. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Dakota. Shout out to Halston. Shout out to Corey. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Ellie. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Carson. Shout out to Avinash. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Noah. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Naomi. Shout out to Novali. Shout out to Adaya. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Chris. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Mochi. Shout out to these people. Thank you so much for being here. On to the next page. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy my shout outs. I would truly appreciate it if you subscribe. Thank you so much for being here. Also check out my other content that I post. Maybe you're interested in that. Or please support. Thank you so much for being here. Shout out to Joel. Shout out to Miranda. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Haven. Shout out to Nora. Shout out to Lisa or Liza. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Camila. Shout out to Mia. Shout out to Josephine. Shout out to Elsie. Shout out to Dessa. Shout out to Cassidy. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Shelly. Shout out to Sasha. Shout out to Leilani. Shout out to Carson. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Cece. Shout out to Lennon. Shout out to Lexi. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Jaylee. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Nora. Shout out to Lola. Shout out to Ollie. Shout out to Skylar. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Carly. Shout out to Nyla. No, what was it? Nalia. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Aurora. Shout out to Matthew. Shout out to Baraka. Shout out to George. Shout out to Karina. Shout out to Taylor. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Sunny. Shout out to Liliana. Shout out to Baljeet. Shout out to Vivian. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Teresa. Shout out to Sophia. Shout out to Ashish. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Sari. Shout out to Angelica. Shout out to Alessia. Shout out to Maylee or Miley. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Lena, happy birthday. Shout out to Briley. Shout out to Annika. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. Shout out to Marley. Shout out to Anna, happy birthday. Shout out to Messi. Shout out to Gabriella, thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Emily. Shout out to Nasi. Shout out to Genesis. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to William. Shout out to Raylan. Or Rylan. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Shout out to Jimena. Shout out to Sakshada. I'm so sorry if I mispronounced your name. Sakshada. Shout out to Lucy. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Bayaso. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. I'm so sorry. Shout out to Baraka. Shout out to Jessica. Shout out to Ava. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Zara. Shout out to Sophia. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Lollipop. Shout out to Leo. Shout out to Malia. Shout out to Fatima. Shout out to Sky. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Ava. Shout out to these people. Leave a like if you're enjoying the live stream. We're almost at 600 likes. Please like if you're enjoying the shout outs. On to the next page. Thank you so much for being here. Shout out to Justice. Shout out to Yolani. Sorry if I mess up your name. Shout out to Gabriel. Shout out to Kinley. Shout out to Eve. Shout out to Scarlett. Shout out to Elena. Shout out to Donna. Shout out to Luca. Shout out to Melissa. Shout out to Everett. Shout out to Jelaya. Shout out to Marina. Shout out to Lisa or Liza. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Dairo. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Lele. Shout out to Daniel. Shout out to Sophia. Shout out to Montana. Happy birthday. Shout out to Remedy. Shout out to Hazel. Shout out to Melanie. Thank you. Shout out to Diamandis. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Kim. Shout out to Mateo. We're almost at 600 likes. Shout out to Renata. Shout out to 40. Shout out to Annelies. Shout out to Fortune. Whoopsie. Shout out to Harper. Shout out to Zariah. Shout out to Stella. Shout out to Sammy. Shout out to Serena. Thank you so much for 600 likes. I appreciate your support. Thank you, thank you. Shout out to Cora. Shout out to Chelsea. Shout out to Chelsea. Shout out to Liam. Shout out to Christy. Shout out to Braylon. Shout out to Diana. Shout out to Katie. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Amber. Shout out to Sergio. Shout out to Charlotte. Shout out to Adriana. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Kelly. Shout out to Kel. Shout out to Brooklyn. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Riley. Shout out to Gabriel. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Juwan. Shout out to Eden. Shout out to Leo. Shout out to John. Shout out to Sunny. Shout out to Lorene. Shout out to Leah. Shout out to Raf. Shout out to Ada. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Marley. Shout out to Dixie. Shout out to Brooke. Shout out to Jaina. Sorry if I mispronounce your name. Shout out to Bella. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Kimmy. Shout out to Diari. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to Lindy. Happy birthday. Shout out to Jocelyn. Thank you for subscribing. Shout out to these people. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy my shout outs. I will see you all in the next one. Thank you so much for being here. So please subscribe so you know when I'm going to live stream next. I will live stream tomorrow. So thank you so much for your support. I will see you all next time. Have a great day or have a great night. Take care. Bye.